let you down, 'cause late nights turn to days. Don't wanna let you down. With each breath we give away, it'll never be the same. I'm chasing somebody who won't ever ease the pain, but I don't want half of your heart, heart, heart. You can have it back if it's only half of your heart. If it's only half of your heart.
Welcome to the live stream. Hopefully everybody's having a good Friday. I'm going to switch the camera over. Just give me one sec. There we go. All right. All right, this is system build number 28. My name is Brian. This is Building with Brian. We're going to go through a full system build. I'm going to show you all the parts that you need, including all of the hardware that you're going to need, as well as any of the tools you'll need to build this system. This is a simple system. This is not a graphic card system. This is a straightforward onboard graphics system, so it's a little bit easier to build with. It's probably good for a first-time builder. All right, let's go over the parts. Let me switch over to the other screen. Sec. All right, overhead. Let me go to the overhead. Overhead. There we go. I can push buttons. Maybe we can figure it out. Okay. I have a new top-down camera, so there's not going to be any more manual focusing. Hopefully this will... It's the first time I'm using this camera, so hopefully this one will work a lot better. So let's move forward. We're going to start with the processor. It's an Intel Core i5. It's a i5-12400 processor. So we'll put that off to the side. RAM is going to be a DDR4 memory. This is DDR4 3600 speed. We're also going to need a motherboard. The motherboard that we have is a GIGABYTE H610M S2H V2 DDR4. Yes, that's a mouthful, I'm sorry, but that is the motherboard we're using. This motherboard does have a lot of different types of video input and output, so video output, I mean, a lot of video output, so you'll have a lot of options just in case. Crucial, we're going to be using one hard drive. This is Crucial 1 terabyte, 3,500 megabytes per second. This is not the fastest. This is PCIe 3.0. There's no need for 4.0 for this system. It will not be used, so we're just going to use that. Power supply is a Thermaltake. Thermaltake Smart 500 watt. This is a decent power supply. It is good for probably anybody that just doesn't really need a graphic card. If you really need a high-end graphic card, this is not the power supply to go with. You'll want something a little bit higher end. So, but for our purposes, it will work today. Tools-wise, you're going to need a few things. Push this off to the side here. Tools-wise, you're going to need a tray for all your screws. It doesn't have to be magnetic. It could just be literally any type of tray. Plastic tray is fine. Cable ties, we have a bunch of them. Clippers, screwdriver. Any type of screwdriver will work. In this case, I'm using an electric one, but you can use a regular one. Knife for opening up all the packages, which I had open, which was a bad idea. Just opening the packages. And you'll need a USB flash drive with Windows 11 loaded on it. We do have a video coming for a full guide tutorial on how to do all of this from start to finish too, so probably stay subscribed to that. All right, let's get started on the motherboard and start putting everything together. So case-wise, oh, I forgot the case. The case that we're using is a Fractal Design Core 1100. It's probably going to be the last time we're going to use that case for a while, just due to shipping issues. So, but we will be probably testing our new case next week. We might do that live actually to see what a new case is all about. GIGABYTE, this is the motherboard. We're going to take this apart first. We're going to actually use this to start with. Let me get down into here. Let me get everything out. What's in the box is going to be your motherboard. Down here. Motherboard. SATA cables. SATA cables we're not going to be using, so we're going to put that off to the side. But we have the motherboard, and as well as the I/O shield, which should be in here somewhere. There it is. I/O shield is underneath everything. The dreaded I/O shield. There it is. We're going to put that off to the side over there. We're going to build on top of the motherboard box because why not? There's no reason not to. We're not going to build on top of the plastic. This plastic is not anti-static on the outside of the bag. It's only on the inside of the bag. So we'll take that out. And we have the motherboard here. Somebody has made it. Awesome. That's glad to see you. Hopefully you'll enjoy this nice new camera that we have, which is going to be a lot easier than me having to sit here and manually focus every 10 seconds. So you guys are going to enjoy that a lot more. It may zoom in and out a little bit. I apologize about that, but it's better than me sitting here playing with the focus ring all day. So, motherboard itself, it's very simple design layout. I'm just going to go over the overview and then maybe zoom in a little bit to get a better idea of what's going on. So, RAM-wise, we got two RAM sockets, which is what we're going to be using 2 RAM sticks for. Power for the motherboard, SATA connectors if you're using them, SATA connectors if you're using them. We're not using these today, but if you have another drive, you can plug it in there. USB 3.2, all the front I/O is down here. Your system fan, if you have one, you can plug it in there. USB front panel connectors, as well as your audio connector all the way down the bottom left. All the rest of this is just, if you have a COM port or LED strip, you can plug it in down at the bottom of the board. We are not using any of that stuff, so we're going to avoid it. Graphic card, if you have one, you're going to be putting it in that socket there, but we do not have one. Hard drive is going to be plugged right into this socket here, which is your NVMe 2.0 socket, M.2 socket, sorry. Your processor is going to go here, upper power for your motherboard, and if you have an external fan on the back end, you can also look at that. Okay, so let me get closer so you guys can see all of the labels on here. For your front panel, it is labeled on the board with plus and minus. These are very important that you make sure you plug those in correctly. Plus to plus, minus to minus, and make sure that you plug into the right one for the right one on the header. The headers are also labeled, so that will also be shown. I'm showing you this now because when it goes in the case, you will not be able to see it. System fan, same thing. You'll be able to plug in your system fan. You'll see there's a little plastic notch here. It'll only fit one way. It's either 3-pin or 4-pin. If it's 3-pin, it will only line up with the first 3 pins. The 4th pin will just be empty. Same thing for USB. If you have USB plugs, you would plug them in here. They are notched out with one little missing pin, which will make it fit one direction only. Same thing for your audio. There's a missing pin. It'll only fit one direction. Moving over to the other side, USB 3.2, which is this one right here. This is basically for your front panel connector. It'll only show you, there's only one that's like a blue connector on there that will actually connect into this. It'll only fit one way because it's notched out. RAM sockets are notched in the middle, and that has to line up with your RAM that you're installing down below. Your socket itself has one arm here, which would be able to take the retention arm up and open up the socket, which we're going to do in a second. Your CPU fan will be plugged in right above that, which is in the upper corner here. This is the only one that's marked gray, so it makes it a little easier to list it as the CPU fan, but it's also labeled CPU fan. If you have another system fan, you would plug it in right here. And of course, you have your 8-pin connector for your motherboard. That's it for your motherboard. Very simple. Let's put it down, and then we're going to start putting everything together. So we're just going to first do the CPU, which is what I usually do first. Let's get a knife. Lois says, let me get my glasses so I can put my contacts in. Yeah, these are a little small. I'll be honest. This is on the motherboard. These are a little small. If you're having a hard time with this stuff, yeah, just probably best to get a magnifying glass to be able to see what it says. Or just, if you want, you could also look at the manual. The motherboard manual does have all this same stuff listed in a bigger format so you can see it a little bit better. So like things like the front panel connector especially are a little bit labeled a little better for you. All right, so in the box for the processor, you get a nice lovely manual with a little badge. We're not going to put that on. Also, you get your heatsink and fan with pre-applied thermal paste. We're going to just use that paste since it's already there. And it's perfectly fine for this processor. Processor is in this little clamshell here, which is a pain to get out. Put it on the floor here. There we go. Okay. Processor's in this little clamshell just to protect it a little bit better. On the processor itself, you will see in the bottom left corner, there is an arrow. That arrow is going to line up with the motherboard arrow as well. So it's going to go into the socket that same direction. And that is on the motherboard over here. Down in the bottom portion is the little arrow pointing to the bottom left. To get this open, we're just going to pull down the retention clip or bracket, whatever you want to call it. Open it up. What you're going to do is you're going to inspect quickly to see if there's any bent pins on the socket. Right now I am showing Let's see if we have any bent pins. It's a little hard for me to see from that far away. So I'm going to bring it a little closer. And it looks like we're okay. Yeah, we're okay. So should be fine. We're going to put the processor in. We're going to gently put that in. Again, the same direction. I'm going to have the arrows match up. If you put it in wrong, it will not close, or you may end up breaking the CPU, so be very careful. It should just slide right into place. There are notches on the processor to make sure that it goes in one direction. Just lay right in. And at this point, the arrow is pointing down to the bottom left, same as the socket. I'm going to close this, and it's going to pop the cover off. That's normal. Let's pull that out of the way. Push the retention arm down, and it's locked in place. You want to keep this cover. This cover is good for just in case you got to do a motherboard RMA, or if you have to ship your motherboard anywhere, you'll have the ability to do that without damaging a board. You can ship it without a processor in it, and that'll make it a little easier. So we're going to put the heatsink and fan on. This is the stock heatsink and fan. If you have a custom cooler, you're going to have to follow the directions for that one specifically. Most of them kind of follow the same pattern here. They usually have 4 little holes here that line up with the 4 spokes of the heatsink. So that's just going to go, those holes are going to line up, and you're going to push them straight down. So just get them all lined up. And then you're going to push one side, and then the opposite side. If it clicks, there it goes. Once you hear that click, that means it's in place. This one is a little wobbly, so I'm going to double check that one. You can always look at the back of the board. You can see if it's pushed through or not. If it's pushed all the way through, you're okay. If it's coming wobbly out, then you know you have to push a little harder or flip the clip over to get it to lock in place. This one's okay, it just needs a little extra help. Anyway, so you're gonna plug in the CPU fan. It's very simple. You just take the 4-pin connector here, and you plug it into the one that's gray on the motherboard, which is also labeled CPU fan. It only goes in one way. If you're pushing too hard and it's bending the plastic, then you know you've got it the wrong direction, so you want to flip it over if that is the case. So should be all in place. Now what we're going to do is we're going to open up the RAM socket. So we're just going to flip the little handles down, little clips down, and we're going to take the RAM out. Oh, I hate this case. And 1, 2. You're going to look at the notch on the board, on the RAM board. You're going to notice that this notch is, you know, there's a shorter end and there's a longer end. You're going to line that up with the motherboard, and you're going to push it down into place, which I always do the wrong direction. That way. Should click in. You do the same thing with the second stick. Pop it in place. You should hear a click. That's the RAM. RAM is pretty good. It's all solid. And we're now moving on to the hard drive, which we're going to put in the NVMe, which is right in this socket area here. So let's get that open. Oh, don't stab myself. There we go. In the box, Crucial comes with a screw as well as the actual hard drive itself. The hard drive itself is about the size of a gum stick. Stick of gum? Gum stick. Stick of gum. Wow. You'll just basically take it out of the clamshell. Be careful of the screw. I'm going to put the screw off to the side so it doesn't end up on the motherboard somewhere. We don't need the screw for this motherboard, but sometimes your installation may require a screw, especially if you're upgrading your unit. You may not have that screw and it may be helpful. This one does not need a screw. This one is using a plastic, I guess, clamp kind of thing. So we're just going to pull that out of the clamp. And we're going to take the hard drive itself and we're going to put it in on a 45-degree angle into the board and then push it down. So we're just going to take this on a 45 slide it into the socket, and then push it down to the board. Make sure it lines up, and you should be able to just put the little plastic holder on it without too much trouble. There we go. Two things to double check. You want to make sure that all the pins are covered down here. That means you've got it fully seated into the socket. Second thing is that this drive does leave a little bit of space underneath it. That is normal. That is fine. That is to allow for a little bit of heat exposure, to allow heat to come out or underneath it. So that is normal. So it is to lay just perfectly horizontal. It does look like gum. Yeah, it does look like a little bit like gum. It's kind of like almost the same size of a stick of gum. I think it's a little bit bigger, but you know. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the GPU socket just in case we end up putting a GPU in that the clip is already open for it to ready to accept a graphic card. I usually do this just in case so that whoever's installing a graphic card, they don't have to remember to open up the clip. It's not going to make a difference either way. It doesn't affect anything. It just affects if somebody installs it without opening the clip, it's going to cause a problem. They're going to have to force it in, and that's not a good idea. So have it open. It's ready to go. So this is ready to go, and now inside the machine, we're going to open up the case and put the case up here. Let me do a quick cleanup here of just the stuff on the top. And just get rid of the boxes and stuff. Always recycle your boxes and the plastic if you can. Let's put that off to the side for now. All right. Cables everywhere. All right, so let's get the case. I'm going to take this off, bring the case up, which I did not take the side panels off, which I totally forgot. So you're going to have to give me guys a second just to take the side panels off. There's just 4 screws in the back to take the side panel off. It's not that hard. Just thumb screws. Keep them in your screw tray so you don't lose them. Yeah, the plastic snap thing that holds down the drive is a lot better than the screw. The screw is a pain in the butt. Sometimes that screw is like really, really small. So it may cause some problems with getting that screw in and out of the board and stuff like that. So the little plastic clip is so much easier. They also make a new one. I think MSI makes a new one that has like a metal retention clip instead. It's coming out on the new motherboards. We're going to see that probably in 2025 maybe, or late 2024, that they're going to be replacing those with like those little plastic, not plastic, it's like a metal clip that they designed so that when it pushes down, it just automatically clips to the drive. And it's like a little push mechanism to put it back out. I'm going to open up the power supply. We're going to do the power supply first. Because this case is kind of small, and the power supply goes up here in this area. So we really need to kind of do this first before we put the motherboard in, just so it's done and out of the way. What I'm going to also do is I'm going to undo this just to grab out the screw box that we need. We'll go over the screws really quickly. Get this off. All right. Inside the box, more accessories. Okay, so we're gonna have screws and we're gonna have some wire ties. These wire ties are horrible. We're not gonna use these, they're way too small. So I'm just gonna throw those out. Go off to the side there. Ooh, already dropping stuff. That's good. There we go. Okay. So, should I learn my lesson? I should put that up there first. All right. We're just going to dump out everything. I'm going to go over these really quick. There that there. Come on. Come on. There we go. All right, plastics out of here. Okay, so there's a lot of screws that come with this. Really what we want to go over mainly is, this is a motherboard standoff. That's going to be put underneath the motherboard. It's going to have the screw option to screw in the motherboard from the other side. Those are going to go down onto the motherboard tray area. Your motherboard screws that go through that are these. They're a little thicker than the other ones. Still Phillips, still a rounded head. Next one out. This one is if you have a 2.5-inch drive, or not 2.5-inch drive. Sorry, 3.5-inch drive. These are for 3.5-inch drives. Those are for like your spinning rust drives or mechanical drives, whatever you want to call it. Those are mounted here on this side. They're mounted over here. They go through these little grommets, and you can screw your drive into that. We're going to take this thing out in a second because we're not using this anyway, but we do put it back in at the end of the builds because it is structural. For this case, you'll end up wobbling the case a lot if you don't put that back in place because it is attached from here down to the bottom of the case, and it is screwed in and it's used as a support for the case. So be sure to always put that back if you're going to use it. And if you're going to put any drives in there, you're going to use that to go through the grommet like so, and it would screw into your drive. The grommet is used for just protection about, vibration. So if you're using a 3.5-inch drive, it's usually spinning. So that's what's going to cause vibration within the case. This is going to cause it to be a little less noisy, and it'll protect against that. Does that little collection bowl have a magnet on the bottom? Yes, it does. That's why it's sticking. That's why it's sticking to everything. Yes, it is the magnet. This is a magnet on the bottom. Let me put that over just in case. That's a magnet on the bottom, and then that's able to click to things. Anything that's metal, pretty much. I'm going to put it off to the side over here just so it's out of my way for right now. We're going to take this thing out, and then we're going to put the power supply in. So this is basically holding the front panel connectors. Yeah, it's good to have because most of the cases are metal. There's only some cases that have like wood now, but yeah, most of the cases are metal, so at least you'll have somewhere to attach it to if you want to attach it to the case and just use it that way. I'm taking all these wire clips off. These wire clips have a metal spring piece in here. You don't want that inside your case. Use the wire tie instead of plastic, so you don't have to worry about grounding issues or any problems. So front panel connectors, let's go over the front panel connectors since I already just took them apart. I know I'm going a little out of order today. It's fine. The small thin wires are all your front panel connectors that are your LEDs and your power button, or reset button if you have one. They're all labeled. Ooh, that is hard to read. There we go. Power LED, it's just labeled positive, negative. So what you want to do is make sure you put positive, positive, negative to negative. If your LEDs aren't working, aren't lighting up, then you need to make sure to flip them. They're probably heading in the wrong direction. Next one, same thing, hard drive light. This one's combined together. It says plus, negative. It's pretty small. Power switch is not plus, negative. It doesn't matter. You can put this one in either way and it'll still work. We don't have a reset button on this case, so there's no reset switch. But if you have a reset switch, you'd plug that in as well. The other things that are in the front panel, we have USB 2.0, which is this connector here. This also has a knockout, so that one would be where the blank pin would be on the motherboard. That's where you would line it up to. Same thing for the audio adapter. It says HD audio, and it has a little block that's marked out. You would just match that up with the missing pin that's on the board. USB 3.0 or 3.2. This is basically the only connector that looks like this, so you shouldn't really make any problem with seeing what this one is. This is a very fragile connector. It has a little notch. It should line up with the notch that is on the breakout board of the board. Now, when you plug this in, it will click in place. Do not unplug and replug this too many times because it is very sensitive and it has some issues with unplugging and may take the entire connector with you on the board. That has happened. Sometimes some motherboards are a little bit more clicky than others to click in, and it becomes hard to take out. So just be very careful if you have to take this out. You may want to push the plastic piece over the clip to get it out instead of just pulling it straight out. All right, so let's put that off to the side. We're going to take this little metal piece out really quick. Wherever I put my screwdriver. Where did I put my screwdriver? It's over here. All right, so let's do this. Sorry, I'm so close to the camera, bear with me. There's 2 screws on top there, one here, one there. And then there's also one on the bottom, which is over here. You just unscrew that. It'll still remain in place until you have slid it out. There's a slide mechanism, so you have to slide this back, and now that's out of the case, and you can take this and move it away. All right. Other things that are in the case, you'll see there's another case fan. This is for the front. There is no rear case fan. If you are planning to use this machine 24/7 and it's in an environment that's a little warmer than normal, I would recommend maybe just putting another, this looks like an 80 mil fan. Yeah, probably 80. That doesn't look like 120. This is 120. So this is probably an 80 millimeter fan. You probably just buy another 80 millimeter fan and put it in there, exhausting outwards. This one is obviously taking air in, and it has a connector here, which we'll plug into the motherboard when we get to that. These cables we're just going to push out of the way, and we're going to put the power supply in up here. So let's get the power supply out. Inside the box of the power supply, what do you have? Not very exciting stuff, just pretty much the manual. It's a manual here. I don't know if there's anything really good in this manual. Every time I just kind of skip past it, we're going to go with the manual anyway, so it doesn't matter. But manual if you need it, and a little pamphlet if you need that. I'm just going to toss that. Some candy, silicone packets that you do not eat. Just toss that away. Power cord. Should be a power cord in here. Yep, power cord. Just put this off to the side. You'll use this later when you go to plug the system in. Another bag. A lot of bags. All right, next bag we got zip ties, cable ties, whatever you want to call them. These are the good ones, so these are a little longer. We're going to use those. Put those off to the side there. And we have 4 screws for the power supply. Please use the right screws for the right things. The reason why is because this screw is kind of a little thicker than the rest of them. So just to show you, that is a thicker screw. It is still Phillips. It's still kind of like a little bit of a nut head on top of that. And as well as that it is just for a power supply. The case does come with these same screws. I wouldn't use the ones from the case. Sometimes they're not exactly the same size that you may need. So let's take the power supply out. Power supply itself is in here. Get that out, unwrap it. Get the box out of here. Stupid plastic bubble wrap. Okay. All right, power supply itself. If you're shopping for a power supply, you'll want to look at this sticker. This sticker basically tells you how much watts you can actually pull from this power supply. This is a 500 watt power supply, and it actually, on the 12 volt rail, is actually able to pull 500 watts. Some power supplies will actually be a lower number there. Corsair does that once in a while too, where the number is actually a little lower. So you may want to take note on that. This is the maximum amount of power that this power supply can pull on the 12 volt rail, which is also considered the entire unit. So total power is 500 watts. You'll have plenty of extra power just for anything that you need to load. This system will not use anywhere near 500 watts of power, even at full load. That's why it's overkill, but it is better to be a little overkill than be under on your power supply. You're not going to waste really much more power by having a little bit better power supply unless you are going, way out of, like let's say you put a 1000 watt power supply in there and you're only really using like 30, 40 watts. That doesn't really make any sense. First of all, you're overpaying for a power supply, but then second of all, you're not going to really see any benefit to like 80 plus bronze or anything like that, or any of that stuff, because you're never going to reach that amount of percentage. So you're not going to reach 80% of the usage to actually reach that, cost savings. So we're going to slip the power supply in. What we're going to do is the fan, I didn't show this. The fan is facing down into the case. If you have a case that has a separate power supply area, you may want to double check to make sure that your fan placement is facing towards usually a filter or a fan area that will allow you to, pull in fresh air from the back of the case. This is going to pull air in, and then it's going to push air down into the system. So let's see. Let me get the screws. Where did I put the screws? Did I just, I almost forgot where I put the screws. Here we go. Got it. Should have used the little thing. All right. So we're going to put 4 screws in. It should line up at the back of the case. It's a little hard to show you guys that, but you're just basically putting 4 screws into the back. There should only be 4 spots that they line up with. This case also has little, kind of like little sunken in hole areas that allow you to know where you have to put the screws. So it's a little bit better to let you know like where they go. But most cases usually have some kind of indication of where those screws should go. If you don't, just look at it very carefully, you'll be able to see it. It's pretty easy. Power supply cables. So there's a lot here going on. This is not a modular power supply, as you can tell. This is basically all cabled in. So we're gonna have to manage some cables a little bit. This is your 24-pin connector. This is gonna be going down to your motherboard. It's the only one that is 24 pins. So it's really easy to understand. This has a little break-off piece. If your motherboard is really old, you could separate that, but most new motherboards, you're gonna use all the pins. It does have a clip. The clip will line up with the little edge that's on the motherboard when we go to put that in. Next one. This is an old type connector. This is a Molex connector. It's a 4-pin Molex. It's really used for, you know, some older fan controllers or LED lights sometimes use these. There's a lot of things that use this. There's old SATA drives that also use this, but it's a really old connector. Most likely you're not going to be using it, so you can just put it off to the side. Next, whatever we're pulling out of here. It's tangled, of course. There's PCIe. This one's a PCI Express connector. There's usually 2 on one connection. If you're putting a graphic card in, you're going to use this most likely. If it requires more power, you'll either have 8 pins or 6. If it's 6-pin, you can pull these off and they separate, and then you can have a 6-pin connector. If you need 8, you could just slide this back on, and now you've got an 8-pin connector. Now, if you're going to do this, you have to make sure to slide this on before you go to plug it in, because if you don't, it won't line up, and you'll end up crisscrossing a pin, and that will be a very bad day for you. So don't do that. So let's put this off to the side. We're not using this today anyway because we don't have a graphic card. The next one that you want to look at is your CPU. It's labeled CPU. It also is an 8-pin, so be careful that you don't confuse this one with your PCI Express. I think these are keyed differently. Someone else is going to have to tell me if they're not. I heard that you can also plug the PCI Express into the motherboard. I haven't done that in a very, very long time. I know that I think they've keyed these differently since then, but if they're keyed differently, they shouldn't allow you to really force that in there. They should just slide right in. Again, they all have these same clips on the top, so they all clip into the port that it's supposed to go into. Make sure it just goes all the way down. This also could be separated into 2 4s instead of 8 if your motherboard only has a 4-pin connector. This motherboard has 8, so I'm going to leave it the way it is, but it does slide out the same way. The rest, nope, that's not that. One more, there's SATA connections. These obviously are like a flat connector. They have a little notch on this side. The notch on this side lines up with the notch on the device, and it'll only slide in one way. You should be able to push it straight in. These can be a little fragile so just be careful not to push too hard. They should just slide in correctly. If you have it going the wrong way, you could break or bend the board that it's being connected to. So just be very careful. These are usually used for spinning drives or SSD drives. Any SATA drive would probably use this. You could also use this for lighting equipment if there's any type of RGB lighting or any other fans that require extra power. They're usually using this. This is the more newer connector for that. We're going to put these all off to the side, and we're just going to start. I'm just going to pull this out of here so it's out of my way. And we're going to get the motherboard in place first, and then we're going to pull all those cables back. All right, hopefully this will stay focused today. All right, so before we do anything, we got to put the I/O shield in. I always forget this stupid thing. And luckily I have not forgotten it in a long time. But when I do, I really get angry because I have to take everything apart to put this back in because it doesn't go in any other way. So I/O shield is basically for the back part of the motherboard. I'm just going to go quickly over what it is. It is all labeled, so when you go to put the board in, you'll be able to know what peripherals you can plug in. You've got your mouse, keyboard for PS2 mouse if you still use those. Like I said, this motherboard has a lot of I/O, so it really does help that if you have anything old, you can actually easily upgrade without having to change a lot of stuff. VGA connection, DVI connection, DisplayPort, HDMI. You also have USB ports, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you have your Ethernet port, which is right there, Ethernet jack, and then audio down the other side. Wow, that's really focusing way too quick. And we have audio over here, and that's it. So what we're going to do is just be very careful with this. This is a little sharp, but it's going to line up with the back part of the case, and we're going to line it in, and we're going to pop it in place. All right. Once that's popped in, we're going to now put in the motherboard standoffs, which we're not going to leave that up there because it keeps focusing on that. The motherboard standoffs are going to go into these little holes here. They're going to screw in to there. I already know which ones is going to be there. It's going to be 6 of them. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But you should always check your motherboard just in case. And my motherboard is correct. It is 6. So just make sure to count off the same amount that you screw in with the same amount that you are putting it down onto the board. You don't want to have any extra of these standoffs behind the motherboard if they're not being utilized, because you could ground out your motherboard, and that would be a very bad day for you. And you'll have to return the motherboard for RMA support, if they even return it for you, because it might be electrical damage, and they may not warrant that. It depends on the manufacturer. But you don't want to have to deal with that. So be sure to put the proper ones down. If you're unsure, just count them up. Make sure you count the same amount that you put in and how many you screwed down. I'm going to use a little nut driver to drive these down a little bit further, but you could also use just a regular plain old needle nose pliers. If you want to use needle nose pliers, you can grab onto these and turn them. This is just going to be a little bit easier, so it's just going to go right over the thing, and that is too big. I chose the too big one. Okay, this one. There we go. If you have a nut driver, use the nut driver. If you don't have it, then just use a pair of pliers just to kind of like tighten these down. Be careful of the case if you're going to use pliers, so you don't end up scratching the case. If you don't want to scratch the case, just be very careful. I mean, no one's going to really see it. It's going to be underneath the motherboard anyway. But, you know, you'll know it's there. So, one more. Actually, no, let's put this. Oh, that's easier. It's not really easier. Oh, that's falling out. Okay. All right, we got one last one on the bottom left. My left? I don't know if it's left for you guys. Same thing, just screw them all down. Drive them down till they bottom out. And that's it. Oh, another little word of advice. These things, this also comes with like this little lock thing that actually goes here on the back part of the case. Do not put this in, just leave it out. This thing, it becomes like a little knife blade when you go to try to take this off the case and it cuts you. So just leave it off, unless you have a reason to be locking the case. But if you have a reason to be locking the case, you probably should be locking it in other means, like using like a, what was that, Kensington lock, whatever it is. You can use those instead if you really have to worry. But that thing really becomes sharp and it's like just very dangerous. So we leave it off at this point. We tried it once and you end up cutting your finger. It's not the most fun part. So let's put the motherboard in. So motherboard's next. After you got all the standoffs nicely tightened down, you can take the motherboard itself, and we're ready to slide this in place. I'm going to put it on a little bit of an angle so it gets into the I/O shield easily, and we should be able to line up all of the motherboard holes with the standoffs that are down below. So we're just going to take this down, put it on a little bit of an angle to get it into the I/O shield. All the pieces. You're going to double check the back of the unit and make sure that you can see all of the I/O and that none of the metal pieces are stuck in the I/O. And push it forward a little bit so that everything lines up. That's ready. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take a screw and screw down all 6 of the stand-ups to the board. Do the screw, first one. I usually like to do this one first because it actually holds the whole motherboard in place. Makes it a little easier so all the rest of them line up. If you want, you can go on either one. It doesn't matter really too much, but if you start like in a screw in the corner, it's going to end up moving on you a little bit, which I found out the hard way. So it's better off to kind of get that one first if you can. If you can't, it's not the end of the world, but it may just take you a little longer to do. And I just totally messed that one up. There we go. Okay. And you just repeat the process for all 6. You know what, I just found another one. Here we go. Okay. Helps if you sort these earlier. Should we need one more? Oh, 2 more. I need 2 more. There's the other one here. There we go. All right, so okay, so the next part we're going to do is we're going to just do the front panel connectors just to make it really simple and get those out of the way. The reason why I showed it to you earlier is because I really cannot show you. It's like too far away from my camera, so that's why. But you can always rewind the video if you need to get to that. We're going to plug in the USB 3.0 connection. Going to plug in audio, USB 2.0. Figuring out which way it goes. Audio, same thing. Plug it in. It should only go one way. If you're forcing the pins, then you know that you've got it the wrong way. You may want to flip it back over. Okay, there it goes. Audio is done. We're just going to do the front panel little buttons, like the LED lights and stuff. Power switch. No, we want HDD first. HDD, LED. Yeah, I'm a mess. This is all tangled. No, let's untangle that. Yeah, that goes that way. All right, so plus, negative, reset. We don't have reset. Power LED. If you have a hard time with getting these pins plugged in, they also make a separate device that's just a pin pass-through. That's like a little block that allows you to take and plug everything into that block and then plug the block down into this. They do make those. They don't come with the case, but you can buy them separately if you really need them. If you're really having a hard time seeing what's down here. I'm gonna also plug in the CPU, the fan in the front. I'm going to try to get at that. If I can untangle the wire tie. Come on, get out there. All right. So the fan, I'm just going to unravel the wire a little bit just to kind of straighten it out, but it doesn't need to go that far. So we're just going to plug it straight in, and then we'll wire tie down the rest of this mess after we get this in place. It's a 3-pin, so it's going to have 1 pin off. That's fine. It will still work. It just doesn't have that last pin. All right, so that's the front panel connector. Let me get some of this mess. You see there's a big mess going on here. So we're going to tie some of this up and start tying some of this down so it's out of the way. We're going to use some cable ties and just cable tie everything up. Again, don't use the ones that were already in here. The ones that have metal in them, you want to throw those out or recycle them or something. Just get them out of the way because you don't want those in the case, just in case they come off or land on something. You don't want it to land on something that might short out the board or short out a device. It's never really happened in my opinion yet, but I've never really seen it happen, but I've heard some horror stories. So especially when you're cleaning a system and not realize that it's been chewed down and it may land on something that's not appropriate to be landing on. All right, let's keep tying this up. Don't be afraid to use a few more wire ties. I know my technicians yell at me all the time because they're like, Ryan, why do you need to use like 90,000 wire ties? My answer is because, and no, it's just because it will help with keeping all the wires away. It is easier to clean with, but the only bad thing is if you have to change something, now you got to clip a lot of wire ties, so it's a little tricky. So that is a little annoying. And I just pulled that off, didn't I? Yeah, I just did. But let go there. Here we go. Positively, there we go. All right. I'm going to clip off the tails. Be careful when you're clipping off the tails not to clip any wires. I go pretty quickly, but you could go slowly. It doesn't really matter. Just don't clip a wire. Push this down, under and out of the way, so that now everything is away from the CPU fan. And if we do put a GPU in here, we have a little bit of room away from everything, tucked underneath. Just stay away from all the rest of the wires. There we go. So now it all stays nicely trained to the bottom. So I can't really see that. There we go. All of this is underneath, so it stays out of the way. If we do put a GPU in, there's enough room here. May have to move this wire over a little bit if they wanted like a very long GPU in here. It may be a little bit, if this wire might be a little bit in the way, but it's rare. So even if we do put a GPU in this system, it'll probably be a smaller GPU because of the power supply. So moving on, let's get the power down to the motherboard. We're going to need the 24 pin and we're going to need the 8 pin. And to do that, we're just going to grab it off the power supply, proper ones. Okay. So 24 pin, you want to put that clip at the end of, I don't know if you can see that, there you go. There's a little ledge here, that little lip there, that's going to line up with that, and it's going to clip in place. You're going to hear a little click noise, that's normal. Clicks into place. Next, same thing, you're going to do that for the CPU. Make sure you get the one that says CPU, but I'm going to untangle it first, because it's all tangled within everything else, which is annoying. I don't know why they did this. They separated the wires like this. This is stupid. There's probably a reason. Probably not a really good reason, but all right. So let's get all that wiring out of the way. And make sure it says CPU, not PCI Express. Make sure it says CPU. Make sure it's 8 pin. And I want to plug that down into the board on the upper top corner. Again, the clip should go over the ridge of the opposite side and should click in place. Well, the rest of this cable could be tied up for now because we're not doing anything else with it. We're not adding another drive. We're not doing anything else. We're not adding any RGB or any of that stuff. So we can tie it all up. It's a really easy build in that aspect. If I had more wire ties, which I just ran out of ties, so that's why I have another container, but I have one more. So we're going to just do the one we do have kind of over here. Push it down. Actually, you know what? Yeah, let me just separate that. There we go. Let's push this way. It's a little bit of a hassle because there's a lot of wiring here, so you might want to just figure out what you want to do first and then tie it down. I'm gonna probably gonna tie this up first, and then because it's just very loose and it's all over the place. So let's get rid of that. Let me open this container. Ties, come on. They don't give you enough ties usually for the entire case, so you may want to buy a few more just so you have it ready to go. I'm going to just tie this last one up. This here. Yeah, this one's like not really, it's like all over and loose and it's getting tangled with everything else. So I'm going to just put some special ties on this one just so it stays flat. Again, don't be afraid to use some ties. It's better to be a little bit more tied up and a little more organized than to have to deal with, you know, if you have to clean the unit, you know, adding something, though, again, it kind of sucks because when you got to add something, it's going to be a little bit pain in the butt. But it will be easier when you go to clean the unit. And most of the time, you're going to probably clean the unit before you add something to it, unless you're constantly adding something to your system. If that's the case, then you may want to think about a different solution. For the wire ties, you may want to use maybe Velcro if you want, but the Velcro gets dirty, so that's up to you. Velcro is a lot harder to clean. You know, once the dust gets stuck on that, it's almost impossible to get the Velcro off. You're going to have to replace it anyway. So that's up to you. It's your decision either way. I know a lot of people are kind of hate the fact that I use regular ties on this stuff, but I'll be honest with you guys, we rarely have to really change anything in here. So the wire ties will stay forever, where the Velcro loosens up over time, or it gets all dirty and dusty, and that's harder to clean, and then we have to replace them constantly, where the plastic we don't have to replace pretty much ever. It's already ready to go. The only time we have to replace it is if we are actually adding or subtracting something out of the system. That makes more sense for us. So I know everybody in the comments are going to say totally differently against what I say, but I do what I do for a reason. Whether that reason's agreeable to you, that's a different story. All right, so we can also tuck this CPU fan in here, just out of the way. Just get it down and into where the sockets are, so it's just pushed out of the way. And it's not out of the way. There we go, now it's out of the way. Just to get it in the area so it doesn't get into the fan. Yeah, it's still good. All right, everything else we're just gonna tie up and kind of throw up into this stupid 5 1/4 inch bay that no one ever uses. You know, if you have a CD-ROM, then I don't know why you're building a case if you have a CD-ROM, but if you do have a CD-ROM or a tape drive or something, I guess, or some sort of maybe fan controller or something you're throwing up here, just, you know, maybe you could throw it into this area then and tie it to the bar. You know, if you have room for that. If you are using that area plus the area on top, you might want a bigger case because this case is really not made for that. All right, we're going to combine these together to do a bigger tie here. Okay. It's not working with me. I don't know. There we go. We're just going to tie this up on the top just to keep it out of the way. Since we don't have a CD-ROM or any of that stuff, that's the best spot for it. Now this is not a modular power supply, but if you have a modular power supply, that's also where you would probably put your extra cables. If you have spares, which you probably will, you'll want to put them inside the case so that just in case you need to power something later, you can plug it in and not plug in the wrong connector. You'll have the proper ones with the proper power supply. I'm just going to jam all that up there for now. All right. It's pretty nice looking. Could use a little extra work. Yeah, it's all right. This is going to wobble around though. Yeah, I'm going to tie it up to here. I'm just going to, there's a hole here that goes through. I'm just going to take this and tie it to that hole so it doesn't move on me. We're just going to combine a few of these wire ties really quick. And then we're going to be on to loading the operating system and the BIOS and all that stuff, which we should be able to do shortly if I can get this together, because there we go. Okay, I'm going to combine 3 so we have plenty of room. So I just combined 3 of these together. They're just end to end. We're just going to tie this down so that we have proper amount of pressure against this. There we go. Okay. So just in case, so that when this is in transport or if it's moving around or whatever, there's not going to be any loose cables making noises. That's really what I'm concerned about. That's why I'm tying that up. So like when we move the case back and forth, you're not going to hear it sliding around. So we're going to also put this back. We're going to put the last piece back in here. So this is now fully complete. We're not going to close up the side panels because there is an unwritten rule that if you close up the side panels before the system does its first boot, it will probably be not booting. That always seems to be the case. So it's just a little weird superstition. You don't have to worry about that superstition if you don't care for it. But I recommend you do it. Just leave it open. You can also double check to make sure fans are moving and all that stuff, which is what we're going to do next after we plug this in. So that's nice and in place, not going anywhere. I'm going to turn this around here, and we're going to plug it in. I have to turn it around because the connections are on this side, unfortunately. I got to really rework this desk. Let me get a mental note. This is always a pain. I always build one direction, and I got to flip it over to connect it, which is kind of stupid. All right, so power, we're going to plug in the video first. Video feed's going to go HDMI. We're going to just plug that straight in. Power, no Ethernet. We're going to leave the Ethernet off. We're going to leave the networking off for right now because we don't want to use a Microsoft account. This is going right over that board. I hate this. All right. This is not smart. You know what? Let's pull this forward. You guys aren't going to really be able to see a lot of this, but it doesn't really matter too much. I just want to make sure the fans are running. Let me get the mouse out of the way. All right, we're going to use a keyboard and mouse, which I have over here. For this, just connect the keyboard and mouse. All right, small keyboard. All right, so let's plug this in, and then we're going to give it a boot test, and we're going to start loading the operating system and a whole bunch of other stuff. The cable should not go into the case like I'm just doing right now. You're going to take that out. It doesn't stay on a fan. That's not a good idea. And mouse, we're going to plug in. Same thing, USB ports. I have the wrong way, of course. Every time. Does anybody ever plug in their USB ports the first way, the right way? I don't think I do, but I've never done that. I always have to reverse it over. All right, so seems more like a Brian problem. Where's my flash drive? Flash drive, are you up here? Where did I put the flash drive? All that moving around here. Here we go. Got it. Okay, flash drive you can also plug in. This is going to have all the drivers, the Windows booting system, the BIOS, all that wonderful stuff. So I'm just going to plug it into one of the USB ports on the back of the unit. Do not use the ones in the front for any of this activity right now. You should still test the ones in the front, but you don't want to use it for any type of booting sequence or anything like that because this port may be bad or something else, and you really don't want to have to play games with that. So always use the one that's already directly soldered to the board, which is this. The ones in the back, they're better off with that. So we're going to flip this on, and we're going to give it a full power test. So let's do that, and we'll go over to that screen in a second after I confirm that fans are running. Push the power button. Didn't I put the power on? Oh, there we go. Okay. Let's go over to the actual screen. It's gonna be a little black for a second. That is normal until it boots. Hopefully it boots. There we go. I'm gonna hit the delete key to go into the BIOS. Now, once we're in the BIOS, we are going to look for a few things. We're gonna, first of all, we're gonna update the BIOS first before we make any changes to the BIOS. We really don't wanna make any changes until we have gotten the BIOS updated. And I'm gonna move the system a little bit further away because you're not looking at it anyway, just so I have a little extra room here and that the power cord doesn't fall out. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we're going to update the BIOS. So we're gonna go to, where is it? QFlash. Click on QFlash, we're gonna hit Update BIOS. We're gonna choose the BIOS that we downloaded, which in this case is H6, I have two on here. Okay, H610. So it's this one, F29. Next, we're gonna update the BIOS, say yes. It's gonna verify the file to make sure that you have the correct file, which it does. On the left side over here, it says the new BIOS. Old BIOS is the same, I think. F29, yeah, it's the same, but let's flash it anyway. Let's hit push to start. It's going to flash the same BIOS, but that's rare that we actually have the updated BIOS. That usually isn't the case. Usually you have to update it. During this update process, do not touch the power. Do not touch anything else. Leave it go. It should just go through its little steps. Do not power off the system during this time. If you power off the system at this point in time, you will have a very bad day. It will not be able to flash and you'll have a big problem. Now that one really quick because it was already the same BIOS, but most of the time that will take a little time to flash and come back on. Should reboot again, eventually. There it goes. You're gonna go back into the BIOS. To get into the BIOS, I'm just tapping the delete key. So just keep pushing the delete key to get into there. Yeah, a bad day would not be good. By bad day, that really means that the motherboard's probably going to be fried. So you're going to have to take the whole motherboard back out, and you're going to have to, submit it for RMA, and that'll be a really bad day for you. So, what you want to check is to make sure that everything is correct. You want to make sure that the current new BIOS is in there. You want to make sure your processor is correct, which it is. RAM is correct. The RAM speed is wrong, which we're going to have to change that shortly. CPU looks correct, temperature looks like it's holding fine, and we're all okay with everything else. You see a hard drive is here, the hard drive is there, boot sequence. Now this is the easy mode. I'm going to go into the advanced mode for a little more advanced setup, but you could also do everything pretty much from the easy mode if you want. You won't be able to memory tweak to the higher speed without going in here. So we're in the tweaker section. Tweaker. And Gigabyte, in the Gigabyte area, we're going to go to advanced CPU settings first and just double check to make sure everything is on that should be on, which everything is on auto. It should be on auto. Hyper threading should be on auto. Game legacy game compatibility mode. If you have a lot of old games, you want to turn that on. We're not doing that. Virtualization technology, you can leave this alone. We're just going to go and make sure everything is correct, which it looks like it is. So there's nothing else to change. We're going to back out, hit escape, and we're going to go down to XMP profile. We're going to change this up to profile 1 and make sure that it comes up with the proper speed, which it does. It says DDR4, 3600, and it says memory multiplier is at auto, which is incorrect. It should be at 3600. So I'm going to change that. How do I know this? It's basically, 3200 is the highest. Okay, so that doesn't help. We'll leave this at auto. Hopefully it'll use the XMP profile instead, which it should. Gear mode, auto is fine. Advanced memory settings, if you want, you can go in there and check everything out, but this should be all set to auto by itself. Voltage for the CPU and stuff, I would leave this alone unless you're overclocking, but we're not doing overclocking today, so just leave it the way it is. Go over to settings, platform power management. I don't really touch anything in here. We just kind of just leave that alone. I/O ports, the only thing we're going to do here, I usually leave PCI Express slot 1 as the initial display port, just in case they throw in a graphic card later. It will automatically just pick that up and go. It takes a little longer boot, like about a split second longer, for it to error out to see that there's no graphic card. Just better off to leave this because it's for the savings in time, if somebody actually goes and puts a graphic card in and it doesn't boot off the graphic card, that's even worse. So we'd rather off just leaving it the way it is. Internal graphics, yes, we're going to be using that. The DVMT pre-allocated amount of memory says 60 megabytes. That should be fine. Aperture size 256 is fine. Onboard LAN enabled, yes, yes, yes. Resizable bar should be enabled because we are using Intel graphics. So enable that. Now there's a GNA Gaussian neutral accelerator. I haven't tested this, so that's why we leave it disabled for now. But if anybody else has tested it, let me know. App Center and download install configuration, we turn this off. So go in here and disable this stupid thing. That will try to load drivers that we really don't want. So Super I/O configuration says serial port, we're not using it, so we're going to disable it. USB configuration, just make sure this is all on, like, legacy support's allowed. I usually leave this alone because it's the most reliable setup. If you don't want legacy support, you can turn it off here if you really don't want to use that. Network stack configuration, just leave it unless you have some other configuration. NVMe configuration, just take a look at it, make sure the drive shows up, which it does. SATA configuration, we don't have any SATA connections, so it should say not installed, but I usually leave the controller enabled just in case somebody wants to connect the drive. VMD setup menu, we are not using VMD, so just leave it off. Go over to, at this point, do not set the date and time. It's pointless. It's going to reset when you go into Windows anyway. So go over to boot, make sure that we're booting off the Kingston, well, USB flash drive in this case, which is a Kingston Flash Traveler. If this has Windows 11, choose it, but if it doesn't, just leave it on Windows 10, it's fine. CSM support, we're not using that. That's a little older, so we don't really need that. And we're going to go over to save settings and exit. And now it's going to boot off that flash drive with all the proper settings, hopefully. Before you load your OS, you really should do a memory test. We're not going to run a memory test today because it takes a very long time. You can use memtest x86 or memtest, I think it's memtest 86. So if you want to do that, you can do that. It should be in the description below. If you guys want to download all that stuff, it's all available to you. Also, all the parts are down below as well. So any parts that you're looking for this system build, you can always recreate this build with the parts listed below. Or if you want to mix and match, you can also do that as well. The boot up time is going to take a few extra seconds because I did up the memory. It's going to have to retrain the memory. So it does take a little longer for the first boot. This is normal. So you're going to end up with a black screen for a little bit. I'll put me on the corner if you want. So it doesn't, you're not looking at a black screen for too long. But it should go. Hopefully. If it accepts that memory speed. Any day now. Come on. Come on. Wow. Yeah, it takes a while. Did it shut off? Did it shut off on me? No, it didn't shut off on me. Okay. It's just taking its time. Now, if this memory doesn't pass, that's a good sign. If it doesn't pass, then we have some little issue. We might have to reset the BIOS if that's the case. If it does fail. Which means I might have to down clock the memory for now. This is taking a really long time. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's ever been 2 minutes. So yeah, I think we're a little too long. All right, so let's power it off. Hold down the power button for about 10 seconds till it powers off. Once the fan spins down, then you can power back on. Let's see if it'll power back on and go into the BIOS. If it doesn't, then we'll have to do a BIOS reset, which I'll show you guys how to do that. At least, I don't think I've ever went over a BIOS reset. So let's see if we can boot still. Yeah, now we're okay. So something, boot failure detected. I want to enter the BIOS again. Something went wrong. Probably the profile. I'm going to disable the profile for now. We're going to go back down to the lower profile for now for the speed. And I'll double check this. I probably have to run a full memory test. It's probably at the wrong settings. Maybe the motherboard manufacturer also has it at the wrong settings. For now purposes, let's just get it booted and going. But, oh, I can't see that. Save and exit. So we're going to save and exit. We're going to reboot again. At least it detected there was a failed boot. That's a lot easier than resetting the BIOS. Resetting the BIOS will require closing a pin on the motherboard to allow it to reset the BIOS. That's a little tricky. If you haven't done it before, you have to take like a screwdriver and then close the pin while the power's on, and then power it off, close the pin, hold it down for a few seconds, then let go of the pin and then let it reboot. And by pin, I mean there's just two little connectors, like the same things that you see for the front panel connectors. That's the same thing. It just says BIOS reset on it. All right, so we're in Windows. We're gonna choose your language, choose your time format, blah blah blah. Hit next. Hit install now. It's gonna ask which operating system we're gonna do. We're gonna do Windows 11 Pro. We're gonna skip the product key because we can't enter that on stream. You should buy your own product key. Windows 11 Pro is the one you want to use. This load also comes with Windows N series. N is in like Nancy. Those are not used for most common sense things, so just ignore that. Just use it for Windows 11 Pro. That's a whole topic in itself, so we're going to move on. Just use the one that doesn't say N on the end. Hit next and agree to the agreement because you have no choice. Custom on the installation, and we're going to choose the hard drive that is currently installed, drive 0. We're going to choose the whole drive. If you want to make a partition, this is the time to do it. We're not going to do that here, so hit next. It's going to go through its installation. During this time, I still have the Ethernet unplugged, and that's so I can make a regular local user account, not a Windows Microsoft account. I really don't like Microsoft accounts for the operating system. It just seems to be more negative things than positive things about it, so we're just going to avoid that. During this time, it's going to take a little while to install. It's going to reboot a few times. This is normal. Just wait it out. It's very exciting. I know watching in percent bar, but this is part of it. I've already loaded the drivers also onto that USB flash drive. So when we get into Windows, we could just load up the drivers right away. And but if you want to get to drivers, you can easily get them from Gigabyte's website, since this is a Gigabyte motherboard. I also get the graphic card driver from the graphic card manufacturer. In this case, it's Intel graphics. So I downloaded the Intel Arc installation, which is what's currently the current driver for that. It's a little separate. You can also get the one from Gigabyte is fine too. It'll probably work fine, but it won't update the driver over time compared to the one from Arc, which will update constantly. You know, any new drivers will come out. It'll do that. I'm going to restart just to go quicker here. We don't have to wait the 10 seconds. Now it's going to go through a reboot. It's going to go through probably 2 to 3 reboots because it's going to go through the first reboot. It's going to say getting information, loading all that stuff up. It's going to load the base drivers. This is normal. Just let it reboot, let it do its thing. Just hands off keyboard. Wait until you get to the out-of-box experience, which will be, you'll see what happens when we get to that. Getting things ready. Okay, it's going to go through its little reboot. Now, if it boots off the flash drive and goes back into the Windows setup, you have to go back to your BIOS and reset the boot sequence to boot off the drive. the hard drive itself. So it's going to be Windows Boot Manager if that's the case. It already switched it for us because Gigabyte automatically does that for you, but some boards like MSI don't do that. You'll have to go in and manually change the boot sequence. Just a moment. Okay. All right, this is the Windows out-of-box experience. It's going to basically tell you a whole bunch of garbage and a whole bunch of like little wizards set up here. You're going to just choose the country you're in this case, United States. Choose the keyboard layout, United States. We're going to skip the second keyboard. If you have a second keyboard, you would add it here. We're going to say we are going to lie and we don't have internet. We're going to continue with limited setup, which is going to now give me the option to create a local user account. We're just going to call it B1 for now. Next, put a password in that you want for your password. We're going to leave this blank for right now so we can just boot up quickly. But you should choose a password that's about 8 to 12 characters at least. 12 being a better solution, but not everybody wants to type 12 characters to get into their system. All right, this is the loading process. Just sit back, relax, wait for it to load. This takes a few minutes. And once we get into the operating system, we're going to take the drivers that are off the flash drive and move them over to the hard drive and install them really quick. And then we're going to run a bloatware removal tool, clean that up, update Windows, and then we should be good to go at that point. You should also activate your Windows. If you have a full version of Windows, you should activate it pretty quickly because it will start with the activation window in the corner saying there's a problem. So, you can run Windows without being activated. That's up to you. But I always like to activate everything so you have all the features. Plus, if this is going to a customer, so it has to be activated. It's good to take drivers. We're going to right-click and just cut those. We're going to make a folder on the C drive. Actually, we have to do the whole folder. Let's just take the whole folder. And cut the whole B1 folder. Put it into the main drive. Just loads a little faster on the machine because it's already compressed. So decompression will decompress a little quicker when it's on the main machine instead of the other way around. These are all zip files, if you notice. They have the little zip icons. So we're going to extract each one. You're going to hit extract. Just choose the default folder is fine. We're going to run that program that it opens. It's going to say the smart screen filter failed because we don't have internet. That's okay. Just run it at this point. If you have internet connected, it'll just bypass that whole screen because it'll just check it for you. In this case, I already know these are clean because I already downloaded them with a machine that has antivirus on it, and we have scanned them. So this is the smart screen. Just hit run for now. During normal operation, you won't even see that screen because it will just check it on its own. Just move on to the next few. You can wait for each one to go, or you could just continue on. I like to continue on through everything just so that we can move on faster since I'm on stream. But if you're first new to this, you could just do one at a time if you want. You don't have to do all of these at the same time. If it crashes on you or anything, then obviously do one at a time. Go back and do one at a time. Extract, consumer. Okay. You'll see they're loading still at the bottom. This is normal. It'll extract a little further and it will install. Again, I'm just going straight through every one of them, extracting, opening, double clicking. It's just a very repetitive process. If you see that, there's also sometimes it'll prompt a little icon for prompting a box. That's normal. Just go down there and click on it, allow it for administrative access so it can install drivers. You definitely need administrative access to install drivers. It will not allow you to do it without it. So you must be an administrator on the system. If you're defaultly set up like you did here, you're already the administrator because it creates an administrator account. But if you have an account that is separate from this, that's not an administrator, you need to be the administrator for all of this to happen. or you need the administration password at least. We're almost through it. Yeah, 2 more to go. Yep. Last one. I don't think we need GNA. Probably not. It's probably going to tell me that I don't need this one. Yeah, no, there's no need for that. Okay. All right, so this is still installing. If it says this is, you know, did it install correctly, just say the program installed correctly. Let it go through its thing. There's no need for a tester for that. Program installed correctly. And once we're down to the last one, we're going to install the graphic card driver last. I'm just going to do that really. I don't know if this will let me do this. Actually, no. I need the internet for that one to work. So we're going to do this last one for the LAN, and then I'm going to go back to the graphic card driver. The graphic card driver, for some strange reason, needs the internet for it to work. So we're going to go on that. At the current time, the date and time are incorrect. So we're going to also go into settings here and just quickly set that to the proper time zone. We're going to change this to Eastern because that's where we are. United States. Still going to be wrong. Still wrong. It'll sync once I go to connect the internet and reboot. So we're all done with the drivers. At this point, all the drivers have closed. So we're going to do a quick reboot. And I just lost my screen there. That's okay. Quick reboot. Let's do a quick reboot here. What I'm going to do is connect the Ethernet cable. So I'm connecting up the internet. I'm going to plug that in, just do a quick reboot so we have everything, all the drivers up to date. While that's going, I'm going to reset my camera because it turned off on me, which is stupid. There we go. Okay. There we go. I'm back. All right. It's going to take a second to adjust. All right. Once it reboots, we're back up and running. So we have the Ethernet adapter connected, so we have internet. It's going to come up with a proper internet over here in the bottom right. It's going to identify, it's going to connect. The time is still wrong. So we're going to go back in and make sure the time gets synced up. So go back to time and language, date and time. We're going to hit sync now to sync up the settings. And it should change the time to the correct time, which is, yep, that's correct. And the minute we connect the internet, you're going to see it install all this garbage. We're going to run a program to remove that, but first we're going to run the Windows updates to make sure we've got everything connected. So we're going to go to settings, we're going to go to Windows updates, check for updates, let it go. It's going to be a bunch. Every time, even if you're on the newest installation, there's always going to be something that's going to run. You're going to check the optionals. Optionals are good. At this point, you can set a few options for yourself. If you want the system to automatically update in the future, you can check this box off here. This will allow the system to install updates and patches for you automatically if you don't want to do it yourself. Under advanced options, you'll also want to double check to say receive updates for other Microsoft products. If you install Microsoft Office as an example or Teams, you may want that on so that it'll update that and patch that as well. Get me up to date, same thing. If you choose that, it'll always install the newest updates, even if they have been proven or not. This is kind of a bad option. If you've got a lot of bad updates, you may not want to turn that on. Notify me when a restart is required for finish updating. That's always should be checked, just to let you know that there's a update pending and that it should be installed soon. Normally, we leave this off on most machines because it'll reboot the machine even during the middle of the day. And that is kind of bad for a lot of businesses. So we don't do that. But we do have to notify the customer that there is an update and just to reboot it to install the update. That does help a lot to keep these updates installed and verified. At this point, you can see I'm just hitting retry on all these just to get everything connected in. It's going to load the display driver. That's why I've just blinked. That's normal. I'm going to also load the Intel driver, which is probably going to reset that. But we'll wait till this is kind of like all in. You'll see that it stops installing. Just keep clicking install until they all go in. You might have to hit retry a few times. Or wait until these are done and then hit retry again. Microsoft kind of like loads these just any which way that they come in, I don't feel like they're actually picking a certain order. So sometimes that happens. Do not run our bloatware removal tool until you have finished updating, because if you do that, you're going to end up rerunning the bloatware removal tool again, because it reinstalls applications that the bloatware removal tool removes. So you want to install everything first, get everything updated, patched, and then run that. I know a few people in comments were like, oh, it came back, and I don't understand why. It came back because you reran the updates, and Microsoft likes to put stuff back in that doesn't belong. It's kind of an upward battle with them sometimes. I'm going to customize the toolbar down below. What I usually do is I right-click, hit taskbar settings. I like to change a few things. I like to turn the Copilot off. I hide the search because we usually don't use that. We also don't use the widgets. Most of our clients don't use widgets. They don't usually use the Copilot. They usually don't use the search. Search is also available if you just click start and then start typing something. So it doesn't make any sense to use, you know, a double search bar to make this bigger. Most people usually want more, you know, icons and stuff for their programs. Here also, I kind of take the start settings. I also bring it over to more pins, so it's a little bit less stuff and less, you know, recommended stuff and more actual pinned icons. Let's wait for this to update. It's almost done. Pending restart, retry. Hit retry on a few of these to see if we can get any of them. If not, we might have to reboot. I got another one. One's installing. Two's installing, yeah. Let these install. So we don't, you know, you could do a bunch of reboots if you want, or you can just try clicking, reinstall or install now, and then try to get as many as you can before having to do more reboots. Because reboots take a long time, and it's easier if there's already a bunch of stuff pending. It's a little easier for it to have to only do one reboot instead of like 6. We have Edge. Customer, I think, uses Chrome. Yeah, they use Chrome. Oh, this thing. Really? I just want to get to the... Thank you. All right, this customer uses Chrome, so we're going to do that. Google.com/Chrome. I don't need that. I spelled Google wrong. How do I spell Google wrong? All right, there we go. Just download. Run it. By the way, if you notice, you can do a lot of installs and drivers and a lot of stuff all at once. You don't have to keep rebooting. Every time the system says you have to reboot, just remember to reboot later if you want to, you know, just to make sure it stays stable. But honestly, you don't need to reboot constantly. Let's also make sure Chrome is fully up to date. It is. Let's also do settings. I don't know why my camera keeps shutting off, so we're just going to shut that off. There we go. That's better. Where are we on settings? I'm going to do the on startup. Open to a specific page. Just going to go to bootonce.com. So it opens up to our lovely website, which I have to change. That's a whole other story. Set all this default, change this to a PDF. We're going to change this. We're going to change this also to Chrome for now. I don't know why it doesn't just set everything. This, no, we're not going to mess with that right now. Okay. Check to see if all the updates are in. So we just go back to settings, Windows updates. Another shortcut key, if you really want to know, is Windows key I will bring you right into settings. So you don't have to click, you know, you don't want to click this and then click that. You can just hold down Windows and then hit I. The Windows key and I will bring you into here. Shortcut keys saves a lot of time during the day, especially if you need to go into this constantly. Virus stuff, we're going to dismiss those. We don't need that. Everything else is set. This is almost done. We're just waiting on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1 and 2 on restart. Well, one on restart. One on restart, one on installing. So we're almost there. Notifications, that's all okay. You'll just clear that stuff. We're also going to change, during setup, there's another thing going into system, the notifications. There's notifications. I'd like to change one more thing because this is really annoying. Under advanced or additional settings, just uncheck all this garbage. This will drive you nuts because it'll go and try to keep telling you to make a Microsoft account every 10 seconds. So unless you uncheck those, it gets really annoying. So it's under system, then notifications, and then down under additional settings, just uncheck all that stuff. Unless you want it bothering you, you can leave that on. Wow, this is taking a while to install. Okay. Oh, power management. I didn't do power management. That's why. Control panel. Change the power management to full speed if you are on a desktop. You'll want to change this from balanced to high performance. And change the advanced settings. You don't want the hard disk turning off. There's no reason to turn the hard disk off. If you have a spinning hard drive, that you might want to leave on. But in this case, we don't have a spinning hard drive, so I'll just leave it off at this point. Power saving, maximum performance. Sleep, never, unless you have a reason for it. Intel graphics settings, you want maximum performance. Most of this should be fine. 100%, 100%, yeah. Display, I usually change to 45 minutes for it off, or 35 minutes. Depending upon certain customers want it certain ways. That should also speed up a little bit of this. As you just saw it, now it's pushing a little faster because now it's using 100% of the CPU. Before, it's probably not using more than 30, 40%. Yeah, it's still going to probably still jump down. I hate Windows for this one reason, because it does not install any quicker. On a faster machine or a slower machine, it still runs kind of slow. Now, they do have a PowerShell script for this as well, that you can run a PowerShell to Windows Update. It does update a little faster through the PowerShell script, I've noticed. But sometimes it misses stuff, so that's the reason why I'm doing it this way. I noticed that it kind of like loads a little quicker, but it's also kind of like slow. So now that just went to pending restart, we're ready to go. And the CPU jumped down. And that went a lot faster after I set the power management. Reboot. You're going to reboot a lot of times. This is part of the process of installing. You're going to see this screen come up where it says Windows updates are underway. It's going to give you a percentage in a second, unless it reboots. It may reboot more than once. This is normal. Just sit back and wait for it to finish until you get back to the main desktop or your login screen. Let's wait through this. We got one more thing to do, which is basically removing the Windows bloatware. We're going to do that. And it also sets a few other settings for registry settings, like changing this PC. When you open up this PC, it goes directly to the hard drives instead of going to recent documents. It's just a common thing that we like to set the other way, because everybody usually uses network shares in companies. They don't usually use just the recent documents. Again, that thing could be changed at any point in time. They could change it in any which way they want, but it's just something default that we load to make it easier. One less service phone call about making that change. You'll also want to stay tuned. If you're not subscribed, I would recommend you get subscribed. We are going to update that Windows bloatware removal tool. I am already started writing the new one. It's going to be in .NET instead. It's going to be fully compiled. You'll still be able to use it just for free. It's not going to cost anything. It'll just be easier to run. You can run it like, instead of having to worry about a PowerShell script. I'll show you right now how to run it through a PowerShell script, but it is going to be a lot easier. You'll be able to just double click it and run it and choose what you want uninstalled instead of just uninstalling everything. You'll have a lot more options available to you. We're also going to try to get the privacy settings set in there too, so that it'll automatically set up privacy settings. But again, everything that we set up within those tools can always be reloaded or reinstalled. We're not doing anything that's permanent. So it's just a quicker way to get rid of stuff that you may not want. But it'll be a little easier because it'll actually have an interface instead of using a command script. PowerShell script, not a command script. I'm sorry, the other way around. So pin this. Let's pin this down here. All right, so let's just double check to make sure we're all up to date, which we should be. Also, we have a Discord. If you guys want to join that, you could join that. That's brand new, but I'm kind of more on Twitter nowadays. So, you know, if you guys have a question, also you can like, what is it called? You could send a direct message, I guess, over there, you know, directly into Twitter if you have that, or Facebook if you really need to. I really hate Facebook. It's all right. There's a lot of ads on Facebook. All right, that's done. Install updates again. Everything's good to go on that. All right, let's do Windows PowerShell. So we're going to go hit the start button, go to Windows PowerShell. We're going to run this as administrator. Run as administrator. It's going to open up a command prompt. So we're going to switch. See, this is a lot of work for removing bloatware. This should be an easier way of doing this. So cd/, we're going to go back to the folder that we put it in. So we're going to go to B1. We're going to go to Windows 11 bloatware removal tool. By the way, I'm just pushing tab for it to automatically fill in. I just start typing Windows a little bit. I push tab for it to auto-fill. Go here, we're going to type out the directions, type how to. Again, just pushing tab to auto-fill in what's in that folder. We're going to highlight what we want to do. I'm going to do that. We're going to run all, yes. And we're going to do ampersand, remove, Windows bloatware, blah, blah, blah. Hit enter. And it's going to start removing all of the junk that we don't want, like Xbox and stuff like that. Zoom, like who has a Zoom? Getting rid of all that stuff, including, you know, disabling the telemetry options. That if you have a really slow machine, that does actually improve a decent amount of speed because that telemetry crap runs in the background, and it's not necessary for Windows to operate. So. All right, now if you noticed, if I click start, a lot of that stuff disappeared, but we're going to get rid of the other ones that are trailing, which I'm going to have to figure out a way to get rid of those. Those are just annoying icons. We don't want the Outlook new. They're going to have regular Office probably. Edge we don't want. Start. And if you go back into the main installed apps, you'll notice this is very trimmed down. So it's just our drivers. Some of the stuff that we usually use during the day, you know, people sometimes use voice recorder. Stepping tool we don't remove, just in case they want to use that. Chrome is installed, and regular drivers, Edge, which we can't get rid of. And OneDrive, which never seems to go away. Even if you uninstall it, it always keeps coming back, no matter what I do. That's a whole nother problem. Anyway. All right, so let's take it out, and everything looks good. It's very clean. I would still go through the privacy settings and set up your own privacy settings. I usually definitely turn this off. This is the tracking garbage. You don't need the general tracking garbage. Speech is fine. Inking, if you have an inking thing, you can turn that off. This is kind of like, we've been through this like 3 billion times. This is on your specifics on what you want to share. Camera is one of those ones that are very careful about. And microphone especially, camera and microphone activation should be always turned off unless you're using Zoom or something, or using a lot of meetings like that. If you are doing that though, you should go into your camera settings, you should turn off this and leave this on. So this will allow you to show up with a choice, where if you leave this on, it will not allow a choice, it will just turn on. So I would recommend that you leave this off and then just leave this on. And then when you want to go and use your Zoom meeting, it'll just say, do you want to access your camera? Say yes, and it'll allow the camera to go through. It's a better setting than the default. This default is kind of like, yeah, allow almost any program that accesses your computer to access the camera. That's a kind of a negative thing in my opinion, so leave that off. You know, hacking software still will probably go around this anyway. That's not the situation, but you know, at least make you feel better about other software that's already installed on your machine. If you're really unsure about that stuff, unplug your camera. That's the best way to do it. Don't use it. If you have a laptop, use a privacy filter and flip it over and keep it flipped until you're ready to use it. Microphone, kind of the same thing. So microphone, we're going to uncheck that and we'll leave it the other way. All right, guys, that's about it for the settings. There's nothing else to really do at this point except for load up, you know, the Windows key, test the memory, and do a few other things. So we'll see in the next one. There's probably going to be another live stream maybe Monday or Tuesday, maybe next week. I haven't really got to the next week's schedule yet. We're going over a new case that we're going to be using. Probably going forward, it's going to be our first time looking at it, so we might do that live just to kind of like show what we do when we go to review a case to see if we're going to use it for our customers going forward. All right, guys, I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great rest of your Friday, and we'll see you soon.